What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the awakening of devil fruits, but before I do, something I would like to mention is that I finally started a Discord for my channel. A lot of people have been asking me to do that, and I was totally good with the idea, and I just had to get all set up and everything. Me setting it up didn't go too well exactly. I kind of just decided one day I was going to do it, got it going, thought I understood how it worked, decided to open up my live stream so that I could announce that I'd done that and anyone in there could get in on the Discord earlier than anyone else. And that was pretty much a complete disaster. I pretty much just live streamed myself for the first hour, not having any idea how Discord works, not knowing how to run one the slightest, getting some people finally who did know what they were doing, made them admins, and then they pretty much handled the entire thing. So now it's kind of running a lot better than it was at the beginning, and it's looking pretty cool. There's a lot of fun stuff going on there, a lot of different channels where you can talk about One Piece, about my videos and whatnot, help give me ideas for future videos, One Piece theories, all that awesome stuff. It's looking really good so far, and not even that many people were really exposed to this whole idea, since only like 500 people actually viewed the stream, and I have like a little over 7,000 subs now, so hopefully it'll get even bigger than it already is. And yeah, just make sure you look in the description, links right there. I'd love to see a lot of you guys in the Discord. But so yeah, back to the topic at hand. I want to talk about the awakening of devil fruits, because we've only actually have 2 confirmed devil fruits to be awakened so far, except of course the awakened Zoans, but that is not really the topic of this video, because what I'm going to be talking about is how it's very unclear at this point how awakenings actually work, unless of course we are talking about a Zoan. Those seem relatively consistent since we've seen 4 awakened Zoans at this point, and they pretty much all did the exact same thing, so that's not really what's in question. What everyone is wondering about is exactly how does an awakened Paramecia work and how does an awakened Logia work. So now, maybe some people are already confused, like, well, FronkyYT, we already know how awakened Paramecias work. That's already been explained by Dofi and been pretty much confirmed by Katakuri. Of course, what we kind of have an idea of at this point is that it just makes objects outside of your body pretty much just like how your body is affected by the devil fruit. Dofi was able to turn his surroundings into strings, and he could then control those strings, and it was obviously ridiculously powerful. And with Katakuri, it's pretty much the exact same thing. He can just make his surroundings mochi and then manipulate it in some pretty interesting ways, and a lot more interesting of ways than Dofi was able to, at least as far as we see. Maybe we didn't really get to see all of Dofi's abilities, but it seemed pretty fucking straightforward to me for Dofi, where Katakuri had cool ways of using it, like the Peerless Donuts technique. That was interesting to see. But I can tell you guys for a fact that that is just not how all awakened Paramecias work. I don't know what to say about Logias at this point. We'll get to that after the Paramecias. But I know for a fact that cannot be how they all work. And I'm not doing the thing where I'm saying, Oda can't make this stuff happen. That's not realistic enough. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, like, with a lot of different devil fruits, that's just actually impossible, even in a world where the author could just do whatever he wants. No. Like, Law's fruit is a Paramecia, okay? What if he had an awakened version of this fruit? Exactly what would he be turning his surroundings into? Like, what? Like, would his surroundings become room? Would his surroundings become kind of like electric or something, because some of his abilities seem kind of electric? And I don't think so. I just don't really understand how this could possibly apply to a fruit like that. I'm not saying it's impossible in any way, shape, or form for a lot of different Paramecias to work exactly like Dofi and Katakuri's. I mean, look at Luffy's. I'm pretty much assuming that is, in fact, how it is going to work. That would make sense that he could make his surroundings rubber. I'm sure he could utilize that in a lot of interesting ways, like, for example, in the video I made a long time ago about Luffy's potential awakening. He could kind of have a staff which could stretch and be kind of made of rubber because he made it that way. But there's also a lot that don't really make sense either. For example, how would Robin's work? She can already use her ability on other objects. That's mainly how she uses it. Sometimes she does extend, additional body parts from herself, but that's honestly not as common as when she uses it on foreign objects or actual people. So that, I don't see how she could awaken that in that way. Moria's fruit wouldn't really make sense for this. I mean, how could he turn his surroundings into anything pretty much the same way as Law's? What exactly is he turning his surroundings into? Shadows? Okay, I don't know. Like, the whole point of taking somebody's shadow is that he's able to transplant it into, like, a dead body or something of that sort, and then it kind of, like, is enhanced by the power of that shadow. Because, like, the shadow's original owner would have to be powerful, essentially. That's why when he got Luffy, it was extremely valuable, and he thought it was about time to put it into his giant Oz. But if he was taking shadows away from, like, inanimate objects, I guess, like, that's kind of a way I can see this being possible. Like, what would that even do, though? Like, that wouldn't really give any power as far as I understand his fruit works. I mean, I really could go down the list. Kuma's doesn't really make any sense. Hawkins doesn't make any sense. Hancock's doesn't make any sense. Aruja's doesn't make any sense. Whitebeard's doesn't make any sense. Baby Five's doesn't really make any sense. Fujitora's doesn't make any sense. I'd say the majority, really, the vast majority of Paramecia's don't really fall in line with this idea of you just turn your surroundings into whatever your devil fruit is. And something interesting to consider is that Dofi, Katakuri, and Luffy's fruits all actually have something pretty big in common. Dofi's may be stretching this one a little bit, but I do have an explanation as to how it could be possible. But what I'm saying here is that these three Devil Fruits users pretty much have their bodies become that Devil Fruit, right? Like, we have Luffy, whose body is rubber. In the beginning of the series, he took significantly less damage because if you're not a hockey user, then you're obviously going to do less damage to someone made out of rubber than just actual, regular bones and whatnot. Then we have Katakuri, who is the same way. He's made of mochi. He is able to move his body in a way that kind of like a mochi substance would be able to. His body actually is mochi. And then Dofi, the one that's stretching it, it's kind of hard to say because what would a body made of strings really be able to do? I don't know exactly. I mean, I think it's pretty much just a normal body. But there is the fact that he is able to make a puppet made completely out of strings, and it pretty much operated like a completely normal body, like how Dofi's works. It wasn't obviously anywhere near Dofi's level because it's a puppet, but it pretty much like had all the properties of a body like Dofi's. So I think it is very reasonable to assume that it is very possible that Dofi is the same way that Katakuri and Luffy are. So the point of me explaining that about those three, and I've already talked about this topic before, and again, a video that I made a long time ago when my channel was just beginning, but that video did not get nearly the amount of exposure that they do now, so I think it's worth bringing up again. I think that for the most part, besides the devil fruits that directly affect the user's body, that's like pretty much the main thing, their body just kind of becomes that devil fruit. Since the Paramecia has always kind of been the oddball, where Zoans are always an animal, and Logias are always some kind of element of nature, I guess you could say. That's not exactly accurate, but that's pretty much how they're described. Paramecias have always been the oddball. So besides those ones that are consistent with each other, where they just affect the user's body directly, pretty much Paramecia awakenings could and should really be an oddball. I don't really see any reason that they should be similar in any way, shape, or form, and just in practice, it wouldn't really be possible. Like, they just are way too weird, way too crazy ideas with nothing really in common with each other, no method of coming up with them that they can actually have awakenings that are pretty much just the same thing with a little bit of twist based on their devil fruit. It just wouldn't really make sense. So I think an awakening should pretty much be like specific to that fruit. Like, for example, and I don't know if this is the case, but it seems pretty likely to me that Law's awakening could be the eternal youth ability, okay? That would make perfect sense to me because it's supposed to be the ultimate ability of the fruit, and perhaps if it was awakened, the user could do that. I could see something like Bon Clay's fruit being able to do exactly what he can do to himself, but maybe with someone else. He can just place his hand on them and transform them into another person. Now, maybe that would only last for a certain period of time because if he was to make someone look like something forever until he took it away, that would be kind of insane, but I think that makes the most sense, right? I don't know. It's pretty hard to come up with ideas for what these awakenings could be, especially the ones that cannot be consistent with what we've seen so far, and that is the majority of them. I'm sure Oda would have a cool idea, you know, if Law's ability really was just the eternal youth operation, then I could pretty much just see, like, pretty much everyone having an ultimate technique, and that would be their awakening. Those would be easier to come up with, I guess. But I really don't know if that's how it works yet, so I don't want to just say that that is how it works and boom. Yeah. Something interesting also worth considering is that it's possible that a lot of people already have awakened devil fruits and it just hasn't really been officially stated at this point. I mean, for example, really the best one I can think of is like Brook. Like, how could he not have an awakened devil fruit at this point? If there is such thing as awakening his, does he not have it already? Like, from at the beginning of the series, all we knew that he could do with it, or not the beginning of the series, but since we found him, even he was pretty much saying, like, the only thing this thing can do is it revives you after you died. So now I just can't swim, and I can't do anything else. And then after the time skip, we find out he can do all this ridiculous shit, like, completely insane. It's quite surprising, really. So I could definitely see that being an awakening. I've heard the idea that Diamantes could potentially be awakened since he was able to make a massive amount of area, like, in, you know, the terrain that he was working with versus Kizaru and Robin and Rebecca. He was able to make that have like a ripple effect, so that was quite interesting. I don't know if that would really be an awakening because he can actually, you know, the majority of things well, pretty much everything that he touches that makes like ripply or the opposite of ripply is outside of his body. But that was like a pretty large area, I guess, and it's kind of like, what exactly is terrain compared to an actual object? I don't know. Could be an awakening. Very hard to say. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about awakened Paramecias. I think that they're very interesting as far as we've seen, and we're going to see a lot more. I'm thinking it's going to be a much more common thing later on, possibly in Wano, or even the Reverie. Maybe they'll discuss it or something, they'll bring it up, and if not in Wano, maybe it'll be a lot more prevalent, it'll happen pretty much all the time. Maybe by that point Luffy will have his awakening, which would be quite interesting. And if that's the case, then I feel like we have to have seen a considerable amount of others before that point, especially in Wano. If we got a lot of Zoans, I'm sure there's going to be a shit ton of awakened Zoans. And if this video does do decently well, if you guys enjoy this topic, then maybe I will do pretty much the same thing about Logias. We don't have nearly as much information on how that could possibly work because there's like, I mean, the vast majority of devil fruits are Paramecias, then followed by Zoans, and then Logias. So yeah, we've got a lot more in Paramecias, a lot more potential, but they're also very consistent with each other compared to Paramecia, so I think there is more, there's like both more and less to talk about with them. So if you guys do enjoy this video, let me know, and I will do a Logia version of this. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to leave me a comment letting me know what you thought, if you enjoyed it, if you want to see stuff just like this, what I could have done better, what you would like to see in the future. I hope you guys have an excellent day, and I'll talk to you on Friday.